I'd like to talk about the Yamaha CS80. No, I don't think this was Yamaha's biggest synth mistake, but I think this possibly was. No, that's not an editorial error. This is a synthesizer which I think Yamaha could have made, should have made, but as far as I know, they didn't. Let me tell you this story. About probably 4.5 years ago, Behringer made a statement that they were working on a Yamaha CS80 clone, which was going to be called the DS80. Now, this did create a bit of excitement in the synth community, but at the time Behringer was making such announcements on a weekly basis, so everyone thought, well, yeah, if it happens, it happens. However, in the comments section on one of the videos, which was reporting on Behringer's announcement, I saw something which I thought was really interesting. Now, the commenters said that Yamaha had made a post on a forum asking if users would be interested in a reissue of the CS80. Now, I have to say that I think is the dumbest question in Synthland. Ever since Ronald McDonald ordered a mini moog and someone said, would you like fries with that? The Yamaha CS80 has achieved a level of mystique and iconicness that I don't think any other synthesizer has achieved. It was released in 1977 and it was way ahead of its time. It had polyphonic aftertouch. This was before MIDI and digital synthesizers, and it had a ribbon strip running along the top of the keyboard. Now, these two super performance features made it one of Vangelis's favourite synthesizers, and it featured on many of his iconic soundtracks, particularly Blade Runner. Now, no one seems to know exactly how many of these things were made, but the estimate is somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000. They cost as much as a house. They weighed as much as a sumo wrestler. So it's of little surprise that not many were sold. They contained, I believe, around 3 miles of wiring. They were certainly at the time an absolute electronic technological marvel. And the sort of circuitry it employed gave it quite a distinctive characteristic. It has achieved something of a cult status, not least of all because of its rather ridiculous second-hand prices. If you're lucky, you might be able to pick one up for 20 or 30 grand. More likely, you'll be looking at 50, 60, 80,000 dollars. I've no idea who buys these things. People with lots of money, dentists, lawyers, rock stars. But this puts it well out of the reach of most musicians. So for Yamaha to ask, would you like us to reissue the CS80? Yes, I think that is a pretty dumb question, because I think 90% of synthesists, people interested in synthesizers, and obviously particularly hardware synthesizers, would absolutely love one of these. Now, I know not everyone is as enamoured with the CS80 as others are, particularly myself. I made a video about me and the CS80, card up there, link in description, check it out if you like. Now, apparently this post was followed up by another question. Would you prefer an authentic clone of the original CS80 or a more modern version? Now, I don't know the result of that question. I know there are a lot of vintage analog synth enthusiasts out there, but I really do hope the majority of people would have said, no, please give us an updated version. The whole point of technology is that it advances, so we really should look to new instruments to take advantage of these new technologies and incorporate them into their design. Well, that's my thought. Feel free to disagree if you wish. So I thought this was really interesting, and I thought, wow, is Yamaha going to re-release the CS80? Now, the timeline for the Behringer announcement and this post seems a little bit vague, but my impression is that the post came first. Quite possibly Behringer saw the post and thought, oh, if Yamaha's re-releasing the CS80, maybe we should get a head start on them. And so then they announced the DS80. But whatever the timeline, 4.5, possibly 5 years on, we still haven't seen a CS80 reissue from Yamaha. So I have to say, I think that is probably quite unlikely now. Behringer has kept us up to date with progress, which seems painfully slow. The last one I can find is about 1.5 years old. I shall leave a link to that in the description. And it essentially says things are coming on well. There's a mock-up of what it's likely to look like. But they also say completion is a good way off yet, without putting any timescale on it. And they even suggest that the project may not even come to fruition. Now, I sort of thought we might see the DS80 sometime in 2023, and well, yet that might still be a possibility. But I suspect this is going to go into 2024, maybe 2025. Who knows how long this is going to take, if indeed the project is actually finalised and a product released. Now, the CS80 is apparently one of, if not the most difficult synthesizer to clone or to emulate. The wiring inside is itself an electronic masterpiece. There are also some custom chips which Yamaha had made specifically for the CS range of synthesizers, and apparently this seems to be quite difficult to reproduce. However, I think if anyone could do it and do it well, it would have to be Yamaha. Although I am sure they would probably face many of the same challenges that Behringer is facing. There is also the question of price, which is of vital importance to us musicians who do not have deep pockets. Now, Behringer fairly recently released, or at least announced, a keyboard synthesizer, and for the life of me I can't remember what the model was, but it had a keyboard, and I think the price was going to be around $1,500. Now, I found that a little bit surprising. It might be cheap for what it is, but to me that seemed expensive for a Behringer synth. The only other major keyboard instrument Behringer has released so far is the DeepMind, which is around half the price. So if Behringer's DS80 comes to market, there is a question mark over the price. How much will this be? Well, if this other synth of Behringer's is $1,500, I am absolutely sure that the DS will be no less than that, quite possibly $2,000, possibly even more expensive than that. So even though I have so far been waxing lyrical about how nice it would be to see a Yamaha manufactured, updated CS80, I sort of wonder how much Yamaha would charge for it. Now, if they had adopted a traditional corporate viewpoint, as, if I may say, Moog did with the re-release of the Mini Moog, I think Moog looked at the price of the second-hand Mini Moog, so they were around $6,000 to $10,000, and thought, well, if we release this at $5,000, people will be quite happy to pay $5,000 rather than $6,000 for a brand new Mini Moog. So I think this corporate attitude of, how much can we get away with charging? I think that is quite evident in the prices of some recent synthesizer releases. Maybe I'm just old and cynical. 2 out of 2. So if Yamaha did a similar thing, they could probably put this on the market at $25,000 and take the bottom out of the second-hand market of the CS80. Now, we are of course into fantasy land, because I would be incredibly surprised if we saw a CS80 from Yamaha this far down the line. And even if they did, I'm fairly sure they wouldn't try that sort of trick. But there are a lot of, shall we say, upmarket synthesizers now at around the $5,000 mark. So I would be surprised, amazed, if Yamaha released a CS80 and if it was less than $5,000, quite possibly 7.5. I'm just playing guessy games now. I know I need to get a life. But it's fun to speculate, and I have to say I am really disappointed that Yamaha is not pursuing the CS80. Perhaps they thought, oh well, if Behringer's doing it, there's no point in us doing it. Or perhaps they just thought it was just too much of a challenge and really wasn't worthwhile. Well, I sort of think a massive number of synthesists would buy it. I think it would fly off the shelves, providing the price was right, of course. Now, no disrespect to Behringer, I don't have any more details of the DS80 than you yourself can find on YouTube and on the net. But when Behringer clones an instrument, it does seem to have a habit of sticking pretty close to the original design and specs. My own view is, look, we've moved on 30, 40, 50 years since these things were designed. Technology has advanced leaps and bounds, so let's use some of the modern technology in some of these instruments to provide more features and more functions, not forgetting making it as easy to use as possible. One of the nice things, certainly from my point of view, which seems to be on the Behringer DS80, is that it doesn't have a screen. The original CS80 didn't have a screen, so thank you for keeping that. I know a screen can be very useful for some functions, and we will probably end up in the world of multiple button presses, but hopefully only for global functions, not for day-to-day use. But I think I would probably have liked to see what Yamaha would have done to improve and build upon the original, say, S80. Meanwhile, I am just playing with my Arturia CS80 emulations and waiting for Behringer to do its stuff with the DS80. So what do you think? Are you interested in the CS80, in Behringer's DS80, or do you think this is just a lot of overblown synth waffle? Let me know your thoughts. In the absence of a Yamaha CS80, I am definitely going to be on the waiting list for a Behringer DS80. Maybe that will get it out of my system once and for all. Now, if you're interested in the CS80 and synthesizers, I think you'll be interested in these videos as well. Check them out. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again very soon in the next video.